Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Tom Berry. Tom is more than fine. And yeah, the purpose of this video, just give you a little bit of background on the class, kind of walk through the syllabus, kind of explain some of the requirements, just to kind of get you situated into the class before we meet for our first class meeting. Yeah, this is kind of it's a hybrid class where there's going to be a lecture video that'll be on YouTube that'll happen every week. And you can watch that at your leisure. There's an assignment that goes along with that. And the goal is to cover a lot of content in the lecture. The assignment is a platform to help ensure that you're kind of processing the information, getting the key ideas. And then when we meet in class, we're kind of reviewing, applying, kind of taking things further, and just adding to our level of understanding of that information. I think it's a great kind of combo approach. You get the flexibility of watching the lecture stuff on your own. And then we have the opportunity to be in class together to explore, answer questions, and all those different kind of things. So I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting you sometime the first week of the term. All right, so let's kind of, let me just kind of pull up the syllabus here, kind of go from there. All right. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. Got both of our classes listed there, depending on which one. So we either meet, once a week, either a Tuesday or Thursday, depending on the class that you are in. It's really, it's mandatory attendance, or, extremely important for you to be in class because that's where we sit down and kind of review, apply, and move through material that way. So just make sure that you have that time available and free to be there in class, especially when we're only meeting once a week versus both days of the term. Office hours, you can also contact me to set up a Zoom meeting if you want. Either way is fine with me. There is a textbook for the course. You can get an online version. Also, advocate if you want, you can get a used edition, the 6th edition, the 5th edition would even be fine as well. If you want to go back that far, and you'll be able to find that for a really cheap cost. So feel free to do that. I can't guarantee if you get into the 5th edition there's going to be some changes, but it's not going to be significant enough where it's going to impact you, in a negative way for the class. As you can kind of see from the requirements for the course or the assessments for the class, you have these weekly assessments, weekly assignments that review the chapter and the lecture. It's like, 5/8 of the points come from weekly assignments. The weekly assignments, I think they're a valuable way to review, to explore, to identify, just kind of key information, to work through content. And it's a valuable way of learning. So that's, a major part of the class attendance and engagement. And then there's a midterm assessment. I don't like to think about it as an exam. It's more of a touch point halfway through the term. Let's think about things at a more macro level, big ideas, big themes, and kind of talk about kind of the midterm is more of an assessment. We'll talk about that when we get closer to the end of the term. And then a final exam, which is a written final exam where you apply ideas, apply information, theories, concepts to historical or contemporary scenarios or examples that I provide. Okay, so then there's some information if you want to read about all those, those assessments, you can read more detail. If you need any assistance with technology, man, we have great resources on campus, so please don't hesitate to contact our tech support for information for support. If you do have a documented disability, the resources on campus to help assist you in your success, and also involve me as needed. As a student on campus, we have a non-discrimination policy. It's important to be aware of that. Also, Title IX is sort of gender and sex protection. Information, contact information, just good information to be aware of as being a student on campus. Also, counseling services available. Not everybody's aware of that. So I want to make sure people are aware that there are counseling services that are available at no charge to students. Principles of community. So the core values that we have about promoting respect and dignity of all people. We have established kind of principles to help support, our cultural environment on campus to be a place of learning for everyone. There's safe zones for LGBTQ plus individuals and others as well, for all individuals to feel safe and secure and to be in an environment where being supported. So information there as well. Just in case you were wondering, there is no student insurance. That's just something, we have to put on the syllabi, but there's no insurance for the class. The last thing to highlight is there's some resource, just accessing resources, financial, housing, other things that are going on, and there's some great great resources on campus to be able to access some information. So I put a contact there. There's also in the week 1 folder, I'll share that with you, or the week 0 folder, it might be in some information on that might be helpful as well. And then last is just sort of doing your own work. This class is really, it's written work for all the assignments, and it's important to do your own work. Every once in a while it comes across where, people are taking definitions from a book or, finding another source and bringing those definitions into their paper without citing the source, without putting quotation marks on information. Just don't do that. If you take information from another source, make sure everything's in your own words. That's the most important thing. I'm interested in your understanding and your explanation versus, your ability to take information from somewhere else. So it's your ability to process and understand information. So just put things in your own words. If there's a problem or an issue with that, I'll be involved, kind of figure that out. But you just need to sort of be aware. And I just want to bring it to your attention, just sort of always put things in your own words, explain things in your own words, define, describe, consult other resources. But at the end of the day, it just needs to be in your own voice. Okay, then there's class schedule, and we follow this class schedule. I stick right onto it. I'm not going to go over it each week. I also provide in Blackboard, go to each folder's a folder for each week 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through week 11, for the end of the term. Yeah, that lays out all these different requirements. So you can look at it either way. So for this week, you read chapter 1 and chapter 2, and there's an assignment that goes along with reviewing content from the chapter. And then there's a video lecture that's in week 1 folder as well. So there's an assignment that basically is reviewing chapter 1, chapter 2, some content from there, and the video lecture. And then you turn that in by midnight the night before our class meeting. This ensures that you're prepped and ready to go for our class meeting. All lectures are available on YouTube, and I share the link, or I put a link in the weekly folder for that. Okay, so that's kind of that's syllabus. It's kind of the lay of the land there. Where do I want to go to next? Let's talk about the weekly assignment. Actually, let me go to the folder first. Okay, so here's our class, right? So here's the shell. Here's the weekly schedule. Syllabus is there, but I also put it in a week 0 folder. There's syllabus. I encourage you to review. We'll talk about this in a second, but the requirements for the summary. Here's a sample of a summary of textbook points from a former student. Here's a summary of lecture, or a sample from a summary of a lecture. Here's information on how to view your grades, audio or written. I usually do a combination of audio and written throughout the course of the term. So sometimes I provide audio feedback, just a different way to connect with you. And then here's access to more information in terms of resources for housing, food, and other resources that may be beneficial to you. So that information is all there. And then if you go to week 1 folder, here's kind of description of what we're doing. Here's the assignments for the week, and I go into there. Later on, I'll put when I get the lecture done, I'll put it in there, and you'll see it's sort of the link to the lecture. It'll be there. But I just want to let you know that here's PDF of chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the textbook in case you don't have it yet. But you will need it starting week 2, because we'll start moving into chapter 3 and chapter 4. But this will get you through the first week if you don't have that. This is the same document that was in week 0 folder, just sort of the requirements. And then I'll put some other things in usually in the folder, some additional videos, for example. You can watch them at your leisure if you want to watch them. You don't have to watch them. They can be helpful in terms of getting some of the core concepts and ideas. Sometimes I put additional articles and information. Unless I kind of identify it, it's not required to read those. I do put in here, let's go down to week 2. there's going to be, starting on week 2, there's going to be a couple of different short articles to read before class. So for week 2, there's an article in week 2 folder called Survivors of Flight F227 and one on lockout drills. So just make sure you read those before class. We will be talking about those in class. We'll be applying kind of content and information. You'll be working in small groups. We'll be talking about as a class, so it's important that you review that information. Okay, so with that being said, now let's go to the requirements of the assignment. Let's see here. All right. Okay, okay, with each week, we'll cover 1 or 2 chapters. The first 2 weeks, we're covering 2 chapters each. 2 chapters in week 1, 2 chapters in week 2. So the workload's a little bit higher the first 2 weeks. And I think maybe week 10, there's another week where we're covering 2 chapters. Other than that, everything's always one week, 1 chapter per week. Okay, so for the assignment, basically comes in 2 sections. Section 1 is where you're focused on the chapter. There's different approaches, I think, learning to become an efficient student is one of learning a strategy and how to work through a textbook. You can take one approach is to read from front to back, right? So start at the chapter to the end of the chapter. Totally good. I mean, so that's one approach, right? It's just to kind of immerse yourself, read the whole entire chapter. That's one approach. Another approach is to scan, identify things that are of interest or of value, things that stick out, and read section by section, area by area. That's another way of approaching learning. I think that second strategy is what you learn eventually, if you're not doing that yet. As further you move through your education, you just become more strategic and learn how to do that and get more comfortable doing it that way. So for this, I say that to kind of provide some perspective on the section 1 where you're reviewing content from the chapter. You're identifying 2 things, 2 concepts, theories, ideas, things that are of important, that you found interesting, informative, important, things that stood out to you. And then you're going to talk about both of those things. So therefore, you don't have to cover the whole chapter, right? So you're kind of like maybe scan the chapter, look for things that stand out to you, and then immerse yourself in those 2 different things and then write about them. So the items that you select could be something really narrow, like a term, right? Like this term anomie that we'll talk about, that you'll read about in chapter 1. It's normlessness, sudden change, creates a lot of instability. I mean, it's a very short definition. If you took that as a concept, then you're going to need to spend more time talking about its significance, its value, why is it important, where do you see it, and those kind of things. If you take something a little bit more broad, like thinking about a theory, you'll read about theories in chapter 1, 2, like structural functionalism. You can spend your time kind of reviewing and summarizing what that theory is. So regardless of the size or scope of the item, define, explain it, discuss its importance to the social world, and give some sort of, reflection or connections to past, present events. Ultimately, the idea is to dive into 2 different things, talk about it, engage in it, demonstrate your understanding. That's what I'm sort of looking for. Make sure you include your word count after each one, so 100 to 200 words for each, and put the word count at the end. Okay, so that's section 1. That's over the textbook chapter. So for the first week, you'll have 2 points from chapter 1, 2 points from chapter 2. For each of those, 100 to 200 words, define, explain, engage with the material, that kind of thing. Section 2 is where you go over the video lecture. I identify themes in the lecture. There's a PowerPoint that goes along with it that'll be in that weekly folder as well. And for each theme, I kind of walk through, talk about this theme, right? And the theme could be, they're usually fairly broad, so there could be a lot of information in that particular theme. And the goal for you is, when you're summarizing that theme, is to think about the big picture. Okay, what's the main idea of the theme, and what's some specific information that was talked about that's important to understanding that theme. High quality summaries demonstrate an understanding of the theme, and then incorporate specific information to demonstrate kind of demonstrate knowledge, to demonstrate understanding of the theme itself. Summaries of the themes assist in reviewing, and hopefully, I mean, my goal is that, with these summaries, that they actually help you better understand material. And then we have a much more engaged classroom experience, just because everyone has had the opportunity to process information, come to the class more well prepared. And then summaries are reviews, and they're not personal opinions about the topic. It's a way to demonstrate understanding, not a space to communicate, like agreement or disagreement or those kind of things. I mean, we can definitely within class, we can engage in sort of personal reactions and thoughts, but for the assignments, it's about summarizing and communicating understanding. And that's the first part. For turning in assignments and just sort of, I think, basic stuff with Blackboard. I use Safari most of the time, but sometimes when I'm trying to do certain things within Blackboard, there's hiccups and I have to go to Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox. So I encourage you, if you run into a problem, or just start using Chrome or Firefox when working with Blackboard. Assignments are due, like I said, the night before, by midnight, the night before class. And there's a 25% grade deduction if it's turned in late, if it's more than, nothing accepted more than a week late. And then finally, put things in your own words, right? So it's so difficult when I started getting, or it's not difficult, it's going to involve a conversation, and somebody turns in work that's not their own. Then we got to start a conversation about sort of what does that mean? How do we sort of, how do we work together to make sure that you're putting things in your own words? There's consequences in terms of maybe a grade consequence that goes along with that. And, then I got you on my radar screen. Like just wanting to make sure, not in a punitive way, but wanting to ensure that you're doing your own work, that you are engaged in the material, and that I'm helping you to support you and making sure you're developing those skills that you need to be able to do that kind of stuff. Pace yourself in terms of the work. So I don't know, it could be one day you're going over the textbook information and completing that part of the assignment, and then next doing part of the lecture. Maybe you can do it over a couple of days, right? I think a little bit every day is because one approach, I would not wait till the night before. That just sounds like a recipe for a lot of stress, just to wait to the night before and do it all then. But, yeah, strategize. That's kind of the key there. And then, gosh, there's one more thing I wanted to share. Let's see here. All right, here's the other thing I wanted to share. If I go into week 1 folder, every weekly folder, you'll see this little icon here. It's for Turnitin. This is where you go to submit the document. The document, I know it takes PDF and Word files. It may take doc files as well, but just click on, okay, there's the assignment. This is the place where you submit it. Click on it, and just ask you to put basic information and where do your files on the computer, wherever it may be, and then just upload it. Just make sure you go through the process and that you've taken those steps to make that happen. All right. Okay, that's it for now. So once again, my name is Tom. I'll be your instructor for the course. Looking forward to meeting you in class. It's a great, 201, it's just a foundation class of sociology. I think it's incredibly valuable. The social world that we live in it's complex. It's forever changing. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? As always, that there's a lot of good food for thought for thinking about social issues, thinking about the human experience in society today, think about the past. I think, with this class, we get tools, theories, ideas, concepts that can help us think more analytically about the world that we live in, and hopefully help us to develop a greater level of understanding about the human experience, to be more cognizant, aware, reflective of the world that we live in, and hopefully to empower us more to make changes in the social world for the betterment of all of us. All right, so have a great day, and I'll see you in class.